Hello again and welcome to the Memoir channel. My name is Nikki Smart and today I'm going to be chatting with Judy Kiehart, maybe that's Kiehart, I'm not sure, about her memoir Calico Lane. It's a memoir about family and breaking through social and cultural norms. Calico Lane is a 2022 Best Indie Award winner in the LGBTQ category, and it also was a first place winner in the 2023 Firebird Book Awards, again in the LGBTQ category. So let's go speak to Judy and find out a little bit more about this book. Hi, Judy, and welcome to the Memoir channel.
Hi, Nikki. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So now where are you actually in the world?
I am in the United States, in the state of Washington, in the
Oh,
capital city of Washington, Olympia. So that's the Pacific Northwest,
oh,
where
okay.
it rains all the time,
Oh,
they say.
no. So, but now your memoir, Calico Lane, is in a different place. So
Correct.
can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up and sort of give us a snapshot picture of the setting of where you were growing up?
Okay. So you have to go back to the early 1900s. My
Mhm.
grandparents came to the town of German, and they were
Okay,
Polish and Russian immigrants, and they settled in the east side of German.
okay.
So there was a bridge and a river and a railroad track separating that little community from the main part of town. So that little community was called the Driga, which means in Russian, away from the main part of town, basically. The
Okay.
Driga, you got to make sure you roll that R and G, Driga,
Riga.
Driga. So it was a little community, a little neighborhood. The center of the neighborhood was the Russian Orthodox Church, and almost everybody who lived in the lane, which is what it was called, the Driga also meant lane.
Ah,
So there were all the people who lived in the lane went to this church, and it was a very tight knit community. Everybody knew each other. All of us kids walked to school together. School was in the main part of town, so we had about a mile walk every day to and from school. And it was a very safe neighborhood. We rode bicycles. We played outside. We played outside till the street lights came on. We swam in the creeks and the little ponds in the neighborhood. We went into the woods to pick huckleberries, and
sounds
we built
lovely.
houses and forts. We explored. It was grand. It was grand. And when it rained, we'd sit on somebody's porch and tell ghost stories. It was a wonderful place to be a child. Rode
Ah.
bicycles, all that. Played on the street because there wasn't much traffic.
So
Wonderful place.
I can hear that sort of there's an echo, sorry, when I speak, but it's hopefully we can make it work still. But I was going to say, so it was Russian and Polish, and do you speak either of those languages?
I used to not only speak, but read and write Russian when I was much younger. But I gave it up. When I was a teenager, I was, rebellion. I don't want to do this anymore. So I didn't, and I really regret that now. But
Yeah.
back then, I had no interest in it.
Okay. And so let's talk a bit about this book. So when did you actually write this? How let's say how old were you when you decided now I'm going to write this memoir?
Oh, well, I decided I was going to write it in the 80s when I was probably in my 30s, but it wasn't the right time. So, what I did was I wrote fiction short stories kind of to test the idea of my memoir.
Okay.
So, and a couple of those won some prizes.
Oh, well done.
So, it gave me the confidence that, yes, someday I could write my memoir. But because of the time, the focus on LGBTQ was negative. It wasn't safe to be out. And so, even in the 80s, when I thought about a memoir, I knew there was no way I could write it.
Hmm.
So I just kept thinking about it and taking notes and reading other memoirs, and writing short stories based on my life, but making them fiction. And so it wasn't until I moved here to Washington during COVID with the lockdown that I decided, now it might be a good time to pull all that stuff out and think about putting that memoir together. But it was going on in my head. probably for 40 years. But it took me about 2 years to actually write it.
Wow. So, COVID seems to have just spurned a whole lot of memoir writing, because a lot of people say they started writing during COVID.
A
So
lot of creativity came from COVID.
I love that. One good thing. Yay.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
wow.
And until the year 2000, I was pretty much still in the closet. My parents were both alive, and my sisters didn't want me to tell my parents that I was a lesbian, even
Hmm.
though I was living with a woman already for, you know, quite a while. My parents just figured it was a good friend, and we shared house bills together, and that was fine with them.
Hmm.
And my dad went to his grave believing that. But I did come out to my mom after my dad died. My wife and I went to spend some time with my mom, and we sat at the kitchen table and told stories and told her about our lives and why we are the way we are.
And how did she respond?
She was amazingly wonderful. She didn't understand, the Russian Polish background, very, very superstitious, very religious, very traditional, very conservative.
Hmm.
Um, she didn't understand how I would be happy or anyone would be happy not being married to a man. That, well, what do you do when you need, your car fixed? Well, I take it to the dealer. Or if I can't change the filter, then I take it to the dealer. But yeah, I could change a car filter. I could change wipers, you
Yeah.
know. So I think by us being with her for those days after my dad died, she just really saw us as a couple and how we work together, how we take care of each other, how we treat each other. And we did some things around the house for her. And she was very surprised. Like, wow, I guess you don't need a man. You could do that. And so it was really interesting. And she was wonderful. On her deathbed, she thanked Eileen for loving me. So
Oh,
that was
lovely.
that was just beautiful. Yeah.
That is
So.
beautiful. Well, I noticed that you've done a lot of book talks, and you've been in a lot of your local papers. So I feel like you got a lot of community support for this book.
Yes, both here in Washington and in the on the East Coast. Last October, I went for the first time to the East Coast, to the neighborhoods of Calico Lane, and had a wonderful response at a library. 18 people signed up for this event, but there was a lot of stuff going on in that neighborhood. There was a pierogi sale, there was a flea market thing, there was a football game, and the library was closed. They just had me there. And the librarian said, Judy, it's a conservative county. 18 people showed up. 18 people signed up. And I said, well, maybe six will show up. You know, 40 people showed up.
Yes, I like
And
it.
many of them bought the book because they looked at the cover and said, oh, I know that place, because the cover is the actual photo going into the lane.
Yeah. And does it still have that name, the rolling the R name that I
The Driga,
Brigge?
only for the old timers. Now there's a lot of young people there from other areas. The traditional older generation is dying off.
Okay.
There aren't a lot
And
still there.
and I mean the town that you said was called German, which is quite funny because it must be from Germany.
You would think.
Is it still called German?
It's called German, and German is named after the man who funded or established the town. His name was John German,
Okay.
and that was named after him.
So
It actually
he
had a
may not have been German.
right German with the
Oh,
Jermyn.
okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, here's a trivia thing, a trivia note for you. They say it's the birthplace of first aid because of a doctor that lived in German, Jermynpa. A doctor that lived there came up with a manual that the Red Cross used.
Ah, All
And
right.
yeah, and so they say they give it the claim of, you have to have a name. So every town's got to have a reason, right? So this is
Yeah.
the birthplace of first aid,
Well, I
which I
like
think
that.
is kind of funny.
Yeah, it's like saving lives. There you go.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Now, would you maybe read us a part from your book? Do you maybe have it nearby and you could maybe read us a short passage? Is that possible?
Well, yes. Let me give a little background first to
Please
it.
do. Yes.
So, growing up again, back in the 50s, early 60s, there was really no one to talk to about your sexual identity, your feelings, your worries. There was just nobody because the language wasn't really invented. And a lot of little towns like German, conservative, ethnic, very heavily ethnic based, very conservative, those towns never even used the word lesbian or gay. If
Right.
you were different, if you were a girl and you were a tomboy, if you were not a girly girl, you were a tomboy. And boys, if they were a little bit on the feminine side, were considered fags.
Mm,
And that's what we called each other, queers and fags. And it
yeah.
was just the way it was. So we're back then, that was in 1963. I had already had several crushes and I didn't know how to deal with that. But I did have two very good friends, Annie and Carol. And someone said, if you're friends during puberty, most likely you'll be friends forever. And that is so true. It is just so true. Carol drove 4 hours to come to my reading in Pennsylvania when I was there, just to
Ah,
be able to. She had the book, she already read it, she already signed off on the areas where she was mentioned, and she just wanted to see me and experience, that. So
how
anyway,
lovely. How lovely. Oh, sounds
and
so.
so Annie and Carol were my dearest friends, and I finally decided that, I was brought up very religiously, so we had the Ten Commandments, and we also had the Don't Make Shame
I
list.
was just going to mention that, but don't make
The,
shame.
the Don't Make, those were the two moral compasses of growing up. So if your sin wasn't on, if you didn't violate the Ten Commandments, and you didn't violate the Don't Make Shame list, which was my family's list of sins, then you were good. You're probably safe, you know. Um, and so as a 13-year-old, I checked those lists all the time, like check the Ten Commandments. Does it say anything about being in love with another girl? No. So, I was clear. And the Don't Make Shame list. No, it was don't get pregnant, don't, leave home, until you're married. I mean, they had their own list. And no, okay, it isn't mentioned there. But I still didn't know what to do about those feelings.
Yeah.
So we were over at Carol's house, and I'll read you a scene from the book.
All right.
And it's one of my favorite scenes because of the expression of friendship, that it doesn't matter where you are or who you are.
All right. I'm going to put you on speaker view. There we go.
So I knew the first step in getting over the guilt from keeping a secret was to confess it. I had no plans to confide in Father Vladimir and figured Annie and Carol were the next best thing. I blurted to Annie, "You know how you and Carol like boys? Well, this may sound weird, and I don't know how to say it, except I don't like boys that way. I like girls." Annie's eyes squinted behind her thick eyeglasses. This is Annie's expression when she's serious. I continued talking because the silence made me nervous. I think it means I'm a queer. I keep trying not to, but my feelings, I can't make them disappear. I told them about Eva and Sonia, Daria, and now Elaine. Annie said, "You're my best friend, Judy, and I will love you forever. But please be careful who you tell. My sister knew a guy who liked another guy. He told someone he shouldn't have told, and a bunch of guys picked a fight with him and his boyfriend." "Geez, Annie, do you think someone will beat me up?" "Only boys get beat up, I think. I don't know for sure." Annie's concern for my safety showed behind her glasses as her eyes widened. Of, sorry.
Okay.
Carol sobbed. "I don't understand. What does this mean? Are we still friends?" "Of course we're still friends." I said to Carol. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know why I have those feelings. You know how you and Annie have crushes on Tommy and Jerry? And when you talk about making out and going all the way, it frightens me. I'd sooner be with the girl than with the boy. You mean be with like good friends? Good friends. Well, you two are my best friends, but as far as dating goes, I'd like to date a girl. Carol pondered the new information. I didn't know girls dated girls. Annie reached for her guitar. They don't, she said. For a long time, I said, I've wanted to kiss Elaine. Oh, I don't think you should say anything to Elaine. Annie strummed a chord. Carol nodded in agreement, but then asked, why not? Annie said, she'll get all kinds of weird. I mean, you'd get weird. I'd get weird. No hard feelings, Judy, but well, you have to admit, it's not normal, right? Right, I said. For now, I don't need to tell anyone else. Differences between us never mattered. Carol and Annie were my forever trustworthy friends. Then Annie suggested I pray to St. Jude. He's the patron saint of hopeless and desperate causes. Judy, you have yourself a desperate cause. I don't think he'll listen, I said. I'm not Catholic. It won't hurt. You have nothing to lose.
Ah,
And
well,
that sums up my two best friends.
I love them. I mean, they're so supportive, and I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, they didn't really bat an eye, did they? They were just like, well, we love you anyway, and just
Right,
be
yeah,
safe,
we
be
can still be
careful.
friends.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but be
fantastic.
careful,
Yeah,
exactly.
no, it's lovely.
And they were that way my whole life. So I really thank God for them, really.
Yeah, no, that's great. Wow. All right. So once you wrote the book and put it out there, did you get any negative response?
Um, yeah, of course. I did get some negative responses from my sisters.
Oh,
Um, they felt that I portrayed them as not being supportive. And I reminded them, well, when I wanted to come out to mom and dad, you guys told me don't, that I'll break their hearts and keep it a secret. I said, well, if you were supportive, you would have had my back.
yeah,
And so then they kind of, oh yeah, I guess so. It's interesting, Nikki, because a memoir is memories, and everyone's memories are going to be different. And my sisters really didn't remember a lot of that because it wasn't important to them back then.
exactly.
And that holds true for a lot of the memories in the book. And overall, they're cloudy. Memories are cloudy, and the dialogue
Absolutely.
is based on how things probably were. It's not word for word. Some of it might be close to it, but it's not word for word.
Yeah.
And no one I think can do a memoir with word for word memories.
No, no, you're very right. I mean, memory is it's a tricky thing. And no two people will remember one incident the same. It's not
But
possible, I don't
but
think.
but other than that, I did not receive negative comments. I did have a cousin who called me and uh, corrected me about some of the background I gave on the church.
Okay.
I can't remember what he said it should have been, but it's like that's how I remember it. I'm not going to worry about this or that being represented. It's not a that kind of a book. It's a child's remembrance of being in church.
But I mean, so overall, you've had this very positive response to your book.
Very positive, yes,
I mean, that's
yes.
fantastic.
I've had an 80-year-old man come up to me after reading and wanted to tell me his story. I've had parents of LGBTQ people come up to me and thank me, and they said that the book helped them understand more about what their child is going through.
Hmm.
A lot of the children are now grown adults, but at the time they were coming out, the parents were a little bit on the fence about it all, and now they're kind of seeing a little bit more. And I think overall the book just helps people realize how much family and friends and where we live, what we're exposed to, how that really defines us.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. Your friends define you, your parents, how they raise you define you, the church defines you, and then it's up to you to figure out where you belong and all that, and what boundaries you're going to cross over and where you're going to stay fenced in.
Hmm. So, I mean, you're not part of the Russian Orthodox Church. You just grew up in it, but you're not part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
The Russian Orthodox Church is, like I said, very traditional. Uh, I believe they're very superstitious in a lot of their beliefs, but you can't beat Easter sunrise service unless you go to a Russian Orthodox Church. I mean, if you want goosebumps, if you want the feeling, you're going to get it in a Russian Orthodox Church at Easter time. So that said, there are things that my heart still is for. I've done different churches. I've gone to many different Protestant churches and non-denominational churches over the years. And
Mhm.
we found a nice one here in Olympia that's very open for LGBTQs, and we've made a lot of friends through there. So we're
Oh,
very
good,
happy with
good,
that
good,
church.
good. So
But I have a
now,
lot of friends that still go to the Russian church and, in German.
okay. Um, and I mean, obviously, you still have lots of connections there too. Even though you've moved. I mean, I feel like, yeah, like you said, that community was very supportive, and the community you're in were very supportive. So it's
Right.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah. A lot of my friends from the growing up time have written to me after the book came out and said, wow, I knew you were having, concerns and you had troubles as a teenager, but I didn't know it was like that. So a lot of them thanked me for that, and it was special, very special. And here on the West Coast, even though nobody knows me, um, the book is doing okay. I'm
I
getting plenty
imagine
of
that it was
emails.
quite a feeling of freedom to actually just put it out there and allow everyone can now see the truth and see your side and your story, and that's got to be quite freeing for you.
It was very freeing. And
Oh, that's good.
a lot of people just like to read memoirs on famous people. I mean, Michelle Obama, her memoirs are
Oh,
great. Of course they are. And, Frank McCourt, Angela's Ashes, that's great. But there are a lot of us regular little people who have some stories. And the We Love Memoirs Facebook group is awesome because
hmm.
all of the wonderful writers in there, and you know how that goes. So you really get you get a wider perspective of people and the things that they are
Yeah.
facing.
I mean, I'm kind of amazed at all the stories that come through when I'm interviewing people, and and I'm kind of in awe of people because they get through some incredibly difficult stuff, and they do it gracefully and with a sense of humor. And yeah, it's very,
Yeah,
I love memoirs because of that exact thing. It shows you such the human spirit and just how amazing we can be, and that we all go through the same thing. Some of us don't,
right.
are too scared to say it, but at the end of the day, we're all similar, right? So,
Exactly. We're all human, and
yeah.
that's what counts.
Now, what do you have coming up next, or are you still doing more book talks and things like that for this book?
I have a good summer ahead of me. I'm going to speak for the local older LGBTQ group, but that's going to be open to the public. I'll do that at a local bookstore, and I do the Pride events, that kind of thing, the local fairs, just to get out and talk to people, library readings, whatever I could schedule. I
Okay.
have some book clubs lined up for the fall, and I'm working on another book.
Yeah.
So I started that, and that's exciting. And this is going to be short stories, all the good ones. Uh,
Oh, okay. Very good.
so
Um, so when I post this, I'm going to post underneath just your website. And do you put everything on your website of where you're going to be and where your events are and how people can find you?
absolutely, yeah, yeah. I think it's pretty clear to find things. Yes, every under Calico Lane tab is where you'll find anything related to the book, of course, and where I am going to be, and some photos of different events and that.
All right,
Um,
fantastic. I'll put a link underneath.
Good,
And
thank
then
you.
what is one of your favorite memoirs?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, okay. So I said Angela's Ashes and Becoming, of course, Michelle Obama. But have you ever read When Breath Becomes Air?
Oh, no, I have not.
Okay, this is a physician coming to terms with his own mortality. I'll tell you, I got goosebumps just mentioning it. that is the book that just brought me to realize our mortality. I mean, we all know we're going to die,
Yeah.
but the way this doctor takes you through his life and the stages up until his almost death, it's just remarkable. So I would say, and his name is Kalanith, Paul Kalanith,
All right. So
Kalanith.
when breath becomes air.
When breath becomes air. That has to be. I mean, like I said, Michelle's is great. Frank McCourt's is great. A lot of I've read Billie Jean King. That was a good memoir. If you want to get into all the tennis tournaments that she was in, that's mostly what it's about. But yeah, but Paul Kalanith's book, I think, is the one that is with me the most.
Touched you the most. Okay.
Yeah.
What, can you hear that noise, or is it just me? I think it must be just me. I'm getting
Yeah,
like
I
this
don't hear
very.
anything.
It sounds like a toilet flushing every now and then.
Oh,
I'm not quite.
no,
No,
I'm in a very quiet
no,
space.
I think it's in my headphones. I'm just hoping it's not being recorded. But sorry if there's toilet flushing sounds. It's not us.
It's not us.
All right. Well, I wish you the best of luck with your upcoming events, and let me know when you get your next book out.
Sure thing.
But I mean, you haven't
Thank
had
you,
this one
Nikki.
out very long, so still you have to like enjoy the glory of this one, because I know you won several awards with it, and it's it's well done you.
Yeah, I'm not tired of talking about it yet, so I suppose when I get tired of talking about it, it'll be
Oh,
time to move on.
please, that'll be like you can go for another 10 years, I can assure you.
That would be nice if it was that active another 10 years. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today and for
Thanks for
chatting
having
with
me,
me.
Nikki. It's a pleasure to talk with you and see you person to person. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.